Hey guys, it's TRIZE here, and we're getting the most power on this naturally aspirated inline 3 engine. We're starting off another batch of these engines after completing the V category just recently. So let's get on with this engine build. So the first thing you gotta do on the top left portion of your screen is you set the year by maximizing it to the year of 2020. And after you have selected the inline 3 engine configuration, you may choose any of the 4 block materials that you may choose from. I'm going to select magnesium for the sake of weight and everything. And for the bore and stroke right here for the engine size, the family capacity, well, first things first for the bore is you max this out to 120 millimeters, and for the stroke, as you look closely at this guy right here, is that you almost max this out by setting it to 119.9 millimeters, which gets the engine size to 4,068 cubic centimeters, rounded up will equal to 4.1 liters. And we're going to be using some dual overhead cam 5 valves made out of whatever head material you may choose from. Again, going to select aluminum silicone for the sake of weight. And with this quality slider, as you see right here, if you're on the latest version of automation as of 4.2.41, is you set this to a plus 15 for everything. No matter it's for the engine block in general, the top end, bottom end, the fuel system for the exhaust, you do this for everything. And also with this quality slider, with the tech sandbox pool right here, the sandbox tech pool, you click on that, and on the engine tech right here is you set this to a 15 for everything, for the bottom end, the top end, the fuel system, and for the exhaust. If I get my hand, that's the exhaust. There we go. So after you got this all set and done, click on apply changes, and we'll get on with the bottom end. Which that bottom end will be with the strongest materials as possible for this engine, with the crankshaft be set at a billet steel, with the cowl rod set to a lightweight titanium, and the piston set to a regular forge. With the balancing mass is that you must have a balancing shaft implemented to this engine because of RPM stressages of how fragile this engine is. And with the counterweight slider right here is you max this out to the 220 setting right here, which should increase this to roughly 35.1 pounds. This is kind of invariable up in here, which is kind of odd. For the compression, you max this out to the extreme level of a 16.0 to 1 ratio like all my other recent builds in naturally aspirated engines. The cam profile, the same thing, maxed out to 100 with the springs and lifters right here set to a 59 with VVT at all cams, with the RPM limit set right here to an 8,500 RPM. And skipping over the turbocharger since it's not really that needed, so for the fuel system, we're going to be choosing the direct injection throttle per cylinder racing intake with the manifold size set to a 97. And the fuel we're going to be using is some good old nitromethane, basically the ones being used in top fuel dragsters, pro stock funny cars, and all that good stuff. With the ignition timing map with this slider set to a -5 by advancing it as much as possible. With the fuel mapping, just set this 5 clicks up to a 55. And finally, for the exhaust and all this good stuff, so for the headers, we're using some tubular racing headers with the header size set to a 94, with the exhaust diameter size set to a 69.8 millimeters, which equals to 2.75 inches. And the usual no cats and no mufflers, and finally, bring up that quality. And we get the final horsepower rating of 1,769.1 horsepower at 8,500 RPM, and the torque at 1,093.5 pounds-feet of torque at 8,400 RPM. And like I said about the engine being quite fragile compared to like my V engines or all the good stuff, is that we are limited in terms of piston RPM stress at 94% of stress being applied to this component. But quite a bit in terms of the cowl rods and a bit with the crankshaft, but mainly it's the pistons that we're limited on. If I would set this to 8,600 RPM, boom, the engine will run because, well, pistons failed due to excessive RPM. So kids, 8,500 RPM is the way to go with this engine. And for this part of the video, I'll give you here what this engine will sound like. I'll play around with the manual testing mode on here and give you see and hear this engine by doing some figures just for a little while and went off the video right then and there. So bring me the graph visibility and give you a listen right now. It's kind of interesting with my ray tracing settings being turned at low settings, we kind of seen in how the headers kind of glow to like an interesting faint orange color like this here, because normally if you have the ray tracing turned off, this will be much brighter than it is right here. That's interesting. So that'll do it with automation the Car Company Tycoon gave with this powerful, naturally aspirated inline 3 engine. While this 4.1 liter engine was a bit fragile, it managed to produce over 1700 horsepower. I guess you could tell Koenigsegg to screw themselves with their 2 liter turbo inline 3 that makes around 600 horsepower. And for those who are interested in this type of content, please be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on any videos like this in the future. So this is TRIZE Rising Up, and signing out.